Arsenal with a chance to win the quadruple. First of all, Ryan, wanted to get your predictions on or not predictions, but rather your reaction to the other semifinal and what you're looking forward to the most, maybe your top three going into that EFL Cup final.
Well, a lot of things can happen between now and March 22nd. A lot of things can happen. So, I don't really know what to expect yet. Ask me a week out, and I'll tell you something, because injuries,
It's
and
fair.
Man City's had some injury crisis, and Arsenal's had some injury crisis, and I don't know
Yeah.
how everyone's gonna be playing up until then. But what am I expecting in that game is, can the teacher or can the student beat the teacher finally? Well, not finally, but in a big competition like that. We've seen Arteta do it in 2020. Would be the last time he beat Pep in a cup competition in the FA Cup semifinal, which, again, that Arsenal team was a social experiment. I don't care what anyone says, but when your back line consists of David Luiz, Socrates, Hector Bellerin, and Skodran Mustafi, that is a social experiment. I don't know how in the world they won a trophy that year, but they did. Just the three things I'm looking at is, please don't start Kepa in the final. Just make Raya the keeper, please. Kepa sucks. I hate him. He's horrible.
Yeah.
Two, um, two, I would say is how does Arsenal play? Do they come out firing? Do they sit back a little bit more? How they typically do against Man City in big moments? We'll have to wait and see. And third is the another not a takeaway I'll see from this. Again, it's still a little ways away, because the winner of this game, the winner of the Carabao Cup final, I think ultimately could decide the English Premier League title. And what do I mean by this? Both of these teams, I imagine, would still be at the top of the table within a game or two of each other. I would imagine. Again, these are all hypotheticals at this point, because I don't know who's going to be
Yeah.
where in a month and a half. Because if they're within a game, and if you get that motion of just going like this with the trophy, does that give you a little bit of an edge going the rest of the way? Because ultimately they will play each other one other time in the season, about April 18th, I think, is the date. And that could
Yeah.
ultimately decide the title. And we know Man City likes to go on runs towards the end of the season where they don't lose a game within 12. And Arsenal's won 17 out of 18, and then that one loss cost them the title. So we've seen that before. But ultimately, I think the winner of this game, the winner of the Carabao Cup, could ultimately win the Premier League title. Obviously, a lot of things can happen. I could be completely wrong in this for all I know, but I think the whoever wins that one is going to get like a mental edge that they can ultimately be able to get it done in the run-in, get it done across the line. And I ultimately think this is probably the biggest game on Arsenal's schedule, because if they win this game, I think they're given the confidence, and they're given the mentality boost that, you know what, they can actually win a trophy. They can actually win. They can actually dethrone Man City and get them to the
Yeah.
end. Whereas if they lose, it could ultimately help them crumble, and a lot of people will start saying, "Oh, it's just same old Arsenal. Man City's going to get it done like they always do." And Arsenal hasn't won a
Yeah.
trophy. Well, I guess if you count the Community Shield, 2023, but they haven't won a true trophy since 2020. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think the Carabao Cup will decide the Premier League.
And maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it really has a sense of they do control their own destiny. It
Oh
feels like
yeah, they
Arsenal
do.
is in control of. I mean, the cards, they have the right cards, they have the right stack right now. They ESPN actually just released an article I was reading a little bit before we came into the show today, talking about how they're the best in the world right now, and they could potentially even get better. They're so sound defensively. I mean, you talked about the pace of play. That was something that they mentioned. It's the slower pace of play, as you were talking about, but they are, at least according to this ranking. And again, they went 1 through 20 in the Premier League. It's Arsenal, Man City, number one and number two. But they like a lot of the things that they've seen from them. So this is a squad that, I don't know, Ryan, at least me personally, I think that they control their destiny in terms of what happens moving forward. And I don't know. Yeah, you do have the weight of that disappointment maybe weighing on your shoulders a little bit.
Yeah, I'd agree. Sorry, I just got a text from someone I went to school with that just said, "I love your TikToks." So shout out to you, Ted. Shout out to you, my man.
What's
Thank you,
up, Ted?
thank you,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. All
Um,
right.
but no, I think you're right, and the only reason
Yeah.
that, like, I'm questionable on if Arsenal can ultimately win the league. We can get to the quadruple discussion after this, but I'm skeptical of them winning the league is because of what they've done previously in
Yeah.
terms of, you know, bottling it. They've only truly bottled it one time, and that was when they were super young back in 2022, 23. Yeah, that season. They were super young, and they weren't even expected to be in the title race. And then Saliba gets hurt, and they didn't have the squad depth back then. And it was basically just like 13 players that they had that could really compete for the title. So it was a little bit difficult. But after that starting 11, they had nobody. The year after that, that's when they said they won 17 and 18. They had a bad start, then they go on that crazy run, and ultimately they lose the league on the final day. And then last year they were just behind the eight ball from the get go, and Liverpool just couldn't lose, and it was all that stuff. But now it feels different in terms of the Premier League. It feels different, and maybe it's because Man City isn't as dominant as they normally are and all that stuff, and they typically are a better team. They have better players normally, and they're dropping points when they typically don't. And they're playing games, or the way they're playing isn't how they normally play, and that's something that also is different. But then I look at Arsenal, and everyone is like, well, the corner kicks, the set pieces, the own goals. Well, they're going in the back of the net. And if you look
Yeah.
back in 5 years' time, and if Arsenal ultimately wins this league, you're not going to look back in 5 years and be like, wow, they scored a ton of own goals. They scored a ton from set pieces. All that matters is
Yeah.
the ball goes in the back of the net and you get 3 points at the end of the day. It's the only thing that matters. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Is
If
is it crazy to me that one of their top goal scorers is people that score own goals for them? Yeah, absolutely that's
yeah.
crazy to me. But at the same time, if the ball ends up in the back of the net, they do not care. What's
Yeah.
the old saying of winning championships? It's like doesn't matter how you do it as long as you get it done. And that's exactly what they're doing. And I ultimately feel they're 6 points top right now. They've played poorly up until the last game. They've played poorly since the Aston Villa game, really, until the last one against Leeds where they won 4-0. But it still feels different, even though they had a bad run of results with Liverpool and Nottingham Forest and then Man United. But it feels different. It just feels like there's like that
yeah.
psychological edge of we can finally get that done. And if they win the Carabao Cup, I think that just takes them over the top and they ultimately get it done.
If you look at the numbers, and there's part of the article that I'm reading, and I think it's kind of eye opening. If you strip out penalties and set pieces, um, then if you stack everybody up in the Premier League in terms of their goal differential, Arsenal is a close second to Liverpool right now in the Premier League. They're second if you take out all set pieces and penalties. So
Can
to
you say
to
that
just
again
assume
for
that
all of the world, please?
Arsenal, if you were to take out penalties and set pieces, is still second in the Premier League in goal differential, one step behind Liverpool. There you
Thank
go.
you. Thank you for all
That's
of
your
social media land out there.
that's that's your line for the day. But then when you add all that in, they actually have the largest goal differential comfortably, may I add. It's not even close between them and Man City. So, number one, they take advantage of their set piece opportunities. They take advantage of their penalties, and they're so if you put yourself in a bad position defensively, they're gonna take advantage of it. That's what good teams do. I mean, to use my dumb American brain as an equivalent, it's like hitting your free throws. Okay. If you hit your
Hmm.
free ones, pretty good chance you're going to win the game. So that's what Arsenal does. They hit their free ones, they hit their freebies, they hit their good set pieces. So when you add that all together with how they're already putting up a lot of goals and are top two in the Premier League in goal differential, then yeah, you have a pretty damn good team who has a chance to go win something of significance for the first time in a long time. So the line of all they need is that it's all the penalties and the set pieces. Well, that was just debunked. So they're gonna have to find a new excuse, Ryan. That's all I'm saying.
It it
I
feels
have to
like
find a new one.
it feels like with this team, and it feels like the whole world, that the moment that this team wins something significant, and if they ever win a Premier League or a Champions League, I think the world might end. Like it, everyone constantly moves the goal back for them. Everyone like I'm
For
already
what it's worth, I
prepared.
thought that was going to happen when Michigan won a national championship. I thought the earth might crumble, or at least parts
Yeah,
of it.
yeah,
Parts of
but
Ohio, East
and
Lansing.
and by the way, I forget who did it, but when Liverpool ultimately won their first league during the COVID year, and there was an article that came. I don't forget what the writer was, but it came out and he talked about how Liverpool hired a throw-in coach that actually like helped them a lot. Like actually created a lot of chances, and they scored goals from it, and they scored goals from set pieces. And that same writer said something like, "How set pieces can win you a Premier League." Then we fast forward to last year, and that same writer comes out and says about how bad set pieces are for the game because Arsenal's scoring them. And to sit there and say that there is not a bias towards Arsenal, you're just that's just a straight up lie because there 100% is a bias, and it's weird because like I don't get it. There's some world class players on this team. There's Saliba,
Yeah.
Gabriel. I think Raya is too. He's an absolute dog. Declan Rice is world class. Could you say
Yeah.
Saka? I think he's just borderline. I think he's just on the outside looking in terms of world class. But there are some world class players all over the place. Jurrien Timber's one of the most underrated defenders in all of world soccer. Like he's unbelievable. And
Yeah.
it's just like I'm looking at this and it's like I don't get why there's a set bias towards this team. Maybe it's because they don't want them to ever win because of the following that there is. So many celebrities love this team. So many musicians, actors, everybody really likes this team, and to see them win something, I don't think anyone wants. And there's 100% a bias around this
Yeah.
team.